Happy Monday, everybody. Sandy and Steve on WTMJ now. Now, anybody who lives in Wisconsin, probably the country for that matter, knows the power and the strength of small business. That's kind of the driver of so much of our economy. And I love talking to experts, and today is no different. We are joined by Brad Close. He is from the NFIB. Brad, what's that stand for? I'm looking quickly at my notes, and I don't have it in front of me.
Good morning, Steve. It's the National Federation of Independent Business.
There we go. Thanks for that. Of course you would know that. So am I wrong on this? The power of small business. We should help them in almost any way we can because so much of our economy here in Wisconsin, in our country, is based on the power of those, in some cases, small businesses.
Yeah, it's absolutely right. You know, across the country, small businesses account for half of America's GDP, gross domestic product, and they create well more than half of all the jobs in the country. So they are a huge part of our national economy, and they should have that respect from Congress and the rest of the country. So
legislation is a part of that, and that's one of the reasons you're on today. We want to draw attention to the fact that in many ways, congressmen, in our case, we've got congressmen and women in the state of Wisconsin, they can shape some of the policies that make it easier for small business to thrive. So let's talk a little bit about the legislative piece.
Yeah, and we think this is an easy one. So in 2017, the tax bill that passed Congress and was signed by the president created a 20% small business deduction that almost all small business owners are eligible for. And they can check by looking at line 13 on their 1040. But that provision gave them a 20% deduction on their taxes. Unfortunately, Congress in its wisdom didn't make it permanent. So it expires at the end of 2025. And what we are fighting to do is get Congress to renew this thing and make it permanent so that small business owners across the country aren't faced with a massive tax increase at the end of 2025.
Brad Close joining us on WTMJ from NFIB. So who's actively working on this? What Congress people are saying, we got to get this done? What senators are driving some of this conversation? Because this will expire, as you said, in a little more than a year and a half.
Yeah. Well, you've got a great one in your state in the Senate. Senator Ron Johnson was an advocate of this provision early on and actually played a crucial role in its creation in 2017. So, you know, we feel like we've got good momentum. We've got almost 20 co-sponsors in the Senate on the Senate bill, over 100 in the House. But we really think this should be a bipartisan issue. It shouldn't be hard for legislators, congressmen and senators to get behind small businesses back home.
So what would this legislation, is it simply let's just re-up what we did earlier, or is there a piece or a change that's causing some of the tension?
No, there really isn't. You know, I think more than anything, it's Congress just being slow and waiting till the last minute to do stuff. What we want them to do is make this provision permanent. We don't think small business owners should have to wait every few years to see if a tax provision is going to stay in the law or they're going to get hit with a tax increase. So this is really simply making this provision permanent. But getting Congress to move and get that done can sometimes be a bit challenging.
And Brad, larger corporations have something like a permanent tax cut, correct?
Yeah, they do. I think the frustrating thing with the 2017 tax law, as good as it was that Congress decided to give large corporations, big companies, to get that corporate rate down to 21%, but they made it permanent. So it doesn't expire. But for small business, they created a great provision, the small business tax deduction, but they didn't make it permanent. And so that's why we are pushing hard, especially this August recess, to remind legislators and to get small business owners interested so that they will talk to their legislators and tell them how important this provision is.
Do you know why that was different? Why the difference between large corporations and small business?
Not specifically, but it's pretty much, when they get to a conference committee between the House and the Senate on a final bill, there's an awful lot of horse trading that goes around on projects and money. And my best guess is there were a bunch of congressmen and or senators who wanted some money used for something different, and that's why this was made temporary, not permanent.
I'm a big fan of action plans. If people are very, very interested in this topic and the actions that Congress could take to re-up the incentive for small businesses, what should they do? Who should they call?
They should talk to their congressmen and their senators. We've set up an easy website, smallbizdeduction.com, where you can learn more about this and have an easy link to write a letter to your senator and your congressman. And if you're a small business owner listening and you don't know if this provision helps you or not, look at line 13 on your 1040. That will tell you the size of the deduction for you.
Brad Close, president of National Federation of Independent Business, NFIB. Thanks for taking the time, Brad.
Thank you, Steve.